सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब, नमस्कार and good afternoon. Welcome to Apna Radio broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. Each Thursday from 3 to 4, I'm here broadcasting from the studio to the world. Tune me in. सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब, नमस्कार and good afternoon. You're very welcome to the program. You're listening to Apna Radio broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. I'm here until 4 o'clock and I hope you'll be with me until 4 o'clock, and we will cover the huge ground again this week about the world we live in, about the life we live in, and the kind of things that we should be talking about it and brooding over the issues around the world, particularly focusing on India and, of course, here in Europe and all the rest of the world. So Charmaine is not here today, and she's entitled to take a day off or whatever, not feeling well, a bit under the weather. So I'm going to talk about it, and Sharad is here with his understanding of what's going on in the economy of India, because economy is a key backbone of everything, and I'll talk about that before I'll run his, or post after he run his clip. But particularly, I would like to talk about it today, what's happening about the delegation which is going around in the world from India, and that delegation is obviously making a huge noises, so to speak, back in India. But why in India and why not in the countries that it's traveling to? I'll just give you a little bit of background of that delegation that our Honourable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, has actually sent two lots, should I say, of delegations around the world, talking about what has happened in Pahalgam and post-Pahalgam on the attack of each other's country, 3 days, 48 hours, so 84 hours, whatever, 3 days war, 2 days, in fact, 2 days war, full-fledged war between India and Pakistan, where looks like the both countries, and particularly India's army, was ready to take action against the prime suspects and the targeted, those pockets of terrorism, so to speak, where the terrorists came from, and then 4 out of 6 came from there. But then again, you see, it's a huge aspect, and you cannot actually, this is called under the Operation Sindoor. And why I'm talking about it further down the line is that 3 weeks down the line, nearly 3 weeks now, is because it is still alive, and the Operation Sindoor is still going around, and seems to be that it has created some sort of a momentum which will be alive, which will be continue, and the rest of the world will hear about it, will gain the countries who would be sympathizing with India, so-called the friendly countries of India. Not everybody is, of course, is welcoming this delegation. There's a lot of people are not welcoming these two types of delegation. And let me explain the first type of delegation, which was sent to the Middle Eastern country. Now, Modi ji is obsessed with the Middle Eastern country ever since that. He's going around to Saudi Arabia, pressing flashes, handshakes and all that, and hugging and kissing and all that to the rulers of the Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, Dubai and all that, and building a good relationship, because huge number of diaspora community, Indian diaspora, live and work there. So that's one reason. The other reason is obviously to have a Muslim issue that on the other hand, what is happening in back home is a different issue altogether. But what is happening in those Muslim countries, and the relationship at the diplomatic level, the ambassadorial level, the diplomatic level, is top notch. There's no doubt about it. And because of that, he has chosen Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, who is a parliamentary speaker, opposition speaker. However, somehow they're not enemy of each other's. For a lot of the political parties who are even in opposition, they are supporting this particular thing. And I think the biggest winner here is the fact that those who are opposing Mr. Modi and his policy and all that, on the basis of on this issue of terrorism, everybody is united. The country is united. Country is one. Voice is one. And it doesn't matter you are in parliament if you are tearing each other apart. When you go outside the parliament, outside the country, as a delegation talking about the country, you talk in unison. You talk with one voice. And that is the very big success, I would say, in terms of the strategy. Whoever is behind this strategy, Mr. Modi himself looks like it, as he comes up with this grand genius plans, is the person who's behind that particular thing. And he succeeded in that because all the other ones are not really working away and people are criticizing and everything. But there are some question marks, and I will raise those question marks afterwards. But first thing first. So Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi from Telangana state, from Hyderabad, who is physically looks like a Muslim with a topi cap, Muslim cap, and a beard in his face, and achkan sherwani, the kind of clad. He wears it. He doesn't wear a suit. He's not clean shaved. He's not, the other looking person. So he is the one who's been chosen to travel to the Muslim countries. Now, that's another clever ploy to send somebody who looks like Muslim, who's talk about, Muslim on behalf of the Muslim community of India and all that, is being sent to the Middle Eastern country with the other parliamentary colleagues who are at times at odds with each other. But outside, they're talking in unison. The other lot, which has been sent, is led by Shashi Tharoor, who is opposition again in opposition party, but he is in cabinet. But with him is the people who are across the section of different political parties and different region of India as well, representing the cross. Religion, minorities and all that. The unity and diversity is the message there. But on the ground, something else is going on. But right now, these people, whether they're Christian, Muslims, Dalit, and all that, are unity in one unit, are traveling with the leadership, under the leadership of Shashi Tharoor, who is extremely well-spoken gentleman, speaks in a very, a British accent because he's trained and grew up in Britain, and then he resumed politics, joining the Congress Party, and then he's a delectable man. He's a very serious politician in some academia politics. That's what his line is, because he's written a number of books. Why I'm Hindu, India, about India many times. Also, a recently book, he has written a book called The Inglorious Empire Against the British Empire. So all of that is, he has been chosen and has been told by the Prime Minister Modi to go to the 35 countries or 32 countries, to those who are friendly countries. Of course, China is not in the list. Of course, Iran is not on the list. Of course, there are several countries who has been omitted. But he's started his travel journey from USA, and then he returned back to the USA and all that. But listen to what he has to say. He is explaining so well about the incident. So those who do not know, I mean, majority of my listeners at this stage are sick and tired of listening to the Operation Sindoor, but here we go. Sit back, relax, and see and hear what he has to say, and then I'll tell you about it.
We have come from India with a delegation of 7 members of parliament and 1 ambassador. And we, in the 7 members, represent 5 political parties, 7 different states.
Our example.
There you are. 7 different states, 3 different religions. It's a diversity of India. But we are united in the message we bring, and that's what I'll be talking to you about in a minute. Our new ambassador has just presented his soft credentials this morning. So
I had opportunity after.
I arrived last night.
So we hope that he will be seeing more of you in the time to come. But may I briefly present my colleague, Mr. Bhuvaneshwar Kalita is a senior member of parliament from Assam in the northeast of India. Mr. Sarfraz Ahmed is from Jharkhand in the east as well. Taranjit Sandhu is our former ambassador in Washington till last year. On the left is Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia. Then we have Tejasvi Surya, who is a member of parliament from Bangalore. To his left, Shashank Mani Tripathi, who is a member of parliament from a state that has more people than Brazil does, UP, Uttar Pradesh.
I was trying to explain to my barber today, where I went, that India has about 1/3 of our territory, but 6 times our population.
People, exactly. I envy your lack of density.
And of course, hundreds and hundreds of years of civilization before Brazil was even known.
That is true, sir. Very, very proud to recognize that. And finally, Harish Balyogi, who is from Andhra Pradesh, as you know, in the southeastern coast. So we represent, in many ways, the diversity of India. And the reason we have come is very much to seek greater sympathy and understanding on the part of our friends. And also countries that are not necessarily our friends, but you are in the high friends category, for our situation in recent months. In particular, the really, really serious attack on our country by terrorists in Kashmir, in a place called Pahalgam, on the 22nd of April. I must say that we saw the statement by Brazil. We were also very touched by President Lula telephoning our Prime Minister personally to express his concern and condolences. But as you know, in the couple of weeks that followed, absolutely no action was taken to bring the perpetrators to heel or even to look for them in Pakistan. We have identified 4 of them that crossed over from the other side, but there's absolutely no effort made. So finally the government decided it had to send a very strong message. And this is why on the 7th of May, India struck 9 terrorist bases. And I say this very carefully. You know also from your years at the United Nations, and I think this is the first time I'm seeing you in an Indian capacity. I've always met you as a UN official. Let me say that here we are looking at organizations listed by the 1267 Committee at the UN. These are organizations whose terrorist standing is not in doubt. They're also on the terrorist designate list of the United States government. And their headquarters, base camps.
In the United Nations also.
Yes, in the sanctions, Terrorist Sanctions Committee, 1267 Committee. So I just wanted to say that we chose targets very carefully where every one of them was clearly and explicitly linked to, or the base of, or the training camp of one of these proscribed organizations. Second, we took great care to do so at night, 1:05 to 1:30 in the morning, to minimize any risk of collateral damage, civilians and so on. Normal life was, everyone should be asleep at that time. And then we also explicitly avoided any Pakistani government target, any civilian target, and any military target. So the whole idea was to signal we are not trying to start a war. We are just conducting retribution for an act of terror, which was a really vile act. 26 people killed. They singled out the men on the basis of their religion. They shot them dead in front of their wives and children. It was really horrendous. And it was meant, of course, to do the maximum possible damage to India, to disrupt the Kashmiri economy, which was booming, to end the prospects of tourism flourishing in Kashmir. Tourism had gone up by 100% in the preceding 12 months, to also perhaps create a communal backlash in India, because these people said, are you Hindu? Bang. Can you recite the first verse of the Quran? then we'd spare you. And in fact, they spared one man because he could recite. And this was clearly intended to send the message, it is our religion that is killing you. And so the hope was that there would be a backlash back in India. And the Indian people, thank God, had the maturity to stay united. Absolutely. Nothing like that. There were heightened tensions for maybe 24 hours, some minor incidents in university campuses and so on, but thereafter the whole country rallied behind. And in fact, once the operation started, you would be so impressed to see the strength of opinion of all sections. And in fact, I'm proud to say that every one of our parliamentary delegations going around the world has this diversity of religion I mentioned. Mr. Sarfraz Ahmed is from the Muslim community, is strongly, solidly with us. We've had others leading voices from the Muslim community. And of course, the Kashmiri people, the Kashmiri chief minister, who was elected in an election with a 64% turnout quite recently. He has been really exemplary in speaking up for India and against this hateful terrorism. But you see, Celso, you understand these phenomena so well. I don't want to preach to somebody as knowledgeable as you are. But this is a particularly troubling matter because it is about the use of terrorism as an instrument of state policy. You know, when we struck those terror bases on the 7th, as I said, every one of those bases identified linked to terror. Next morning, there is a funeral at one of the sites, conducted by a person who's also named in the committee, Hafiz Abdul Rauf, who's an elite figure named in the United Nations Sanctions Committee. He is conducting the funeral, and look who's attending. Uniformed officers of the police and military of Pakistan. These are all military officers, and there are a couple of police people, senior officials. This is what is going on in Pakistan. This organization, the LET, has created this front called the Resistance Front, so-called. We have been reporting about the Resistance Front to the UN Sanctions Committee time after time. 3 times we've already given details. They claimed credit for the terrorist killings. The next day they repeated that claim. And then when people realized the gravity of it, their handlers in Pakistan got them to delete the claim. But the claim is on record for a full 24 hours. And what is deeply disquieting is when India encouraged our friends on the Security Council to mention the Resistance Front in the press statement that the Security Council issued, the Pakistan government, I'm sorry to say with the support of your friends in China, took out the name. So there is not even a reference to the organization.
We have many friends.
Yes, of course, and we are also your friends. But we are not on the council. These guys are, and neither are you these days, which is our loss. We have to change that situation, sir. Both of us should be on the council together on a more durable basis. But to come back to the story, so we conducted this. The Pakistanis were told very clearly, and the world was told, this is a retribution, not the beginning of a war. If you leave this alone, we will leave you alone. Pakistan instead chose to react with disproportionate artillery shelling on civilian areas. They killed 19 civilians in one district alone, Poonch in Kashmir.
The Pakistani
Army. This time official Pakistani army attacked us. They killed 19 civilians. They hit a Sikh temple, a Gurudwara. They hit a convent, the convent of the Carmelites of Mother Mary. They killed civilians in homes. They killed traffic on the streets. It was absolutely shocking. At that point, we also retaliated. There was no declaration of war, but we hit them back very hard. The day after that, they sent drones and missiles. Over 400 drones came across our border, and they fired missiles. I'm proud to say our air defenses proved equal to the task. We, in turn, on the night of the 9th, 10th of May, hit 11 Pakistani military targets. These were airfields of the Pakistani Air Force.
It was when, more or less.
Well, we
to keep the calendar, this is more or less.
So the whole thing is 88 hours. The entire conflict was 88 hours. Because once we hit these airfields, and there are satellite pictures, not just from us, but commercially available satellite pictures, showing craters in the main airfields of the Pakistan Air Force, after that they asked for peace. They said, let's stop firing. There was a call. You see, the hotline between the two directors general of military operations is always open. So their Director General called ours in the morning of the 10th of May, afternoon at 3:30, a formal call was arranged. They proposed cessation of firing at 5 p.m. We agreed instantly. And I stress this agreed instantly point because our line had throughout been, we don't want a war. Our line had throughout been that we as India are focused on our growth and development. We have no wish to do anything but promote the prosperity and well-being of our people. We do not want to be distracted by conflict and terrorism and war. But you cannot think that people can walk across your border and kill us and go away with impunity. So the message was, if they do that, there will be reprisals. There will be a price to pay. But thereafter, we are not interested in a conflict against the whole Pakistani nation and people with whom we have no quarrel. Now, what happened as soon as this was proposed was that we stopped, and though for a couple of hours there were some people on the other side who violated the agreement, it subsided very quickly, and now we have 3 weeks of pretty much calm on the border. So the story is to that degree, for the moment, over. It's a story of an 88-hour conflict. But the larger lessons are what I wanted to talk to you about, and through you, I hope you will share our Prime Minister's concerns with President Lula, because the truth is that we really need understanding from our friends here. This is not some random incident.
So this is what it is. I mean, it is Shashi Tharoor talking about the wonderful conflict that we had. Why I say wonderful? Because it was too quick and too short, and then it stopped. So it was either it was orchestrated, it was connived, it was planned, or it doesn't just happen, because once the conflict starts, it doesn't stop like that. You know, although he clearly says that India never wanted a war, and but there's a lot of questions unanswered. And the one question that is unanswered is that how those 6 people had been, infiltrated in a strong, unless they are facilitated to come into Pakistan, from Pakistan into India, 4 of them. 2 of them is not, there's no record of them. You know, logically, my mind says that, I mean, of course, I'm just nobody, in a global politics and strategically talking about these things, that you go after the terrorists who were, came, how they came, how they end up killing those people and all that. It was surgical, it was mechanical, it was connived, it was structured, it was, very, very carefully planned that it will happen, and immediately we will be able to, close the door of the war. Yes, tit for tat happened for 88 hours, as the Shashi Tharoor has mentioned, but after that, everything is hunky-dory, everything is back to normal, everything is back. But no diplomatic relationship has not been resumed. Airspace has not been resumed, and many things. The scars of these 88 hours war will last for quite some time. But the question that I'm begging to ask everybody is that why in this delegation nobody from the leadership of of course he's a president of the Congress Party, chosen very well, but why not, a person like Rahul Gandhi? Why not anybody from other prominent voices which were in opposition for quite some time? So therefore, that's one issue. The other issue is that on the ground, there has been an incident which I've covered very well in my program, was about Ali Mahmood Abadi, Ali Mahmood Abadi, who had been picked up from the university just because of writing a blog about Operation Sindoor and making a statement that it was cynical exercise and hypocrisy if it's not been translated back on the ground. Because on the ground, what is happening is that with impunity, a lot of gundas and goons are going around terrorizing Muslims, demolishing their houses. You know that in Gujarat, the states from Mr. Narendra Modi ji has come from, Ahmedabad, there's a huge amount of 84,000 houses has been demolished. Why? Because those are the Muslim houses. So demolishing Muslim houses and demolishing, people's houses and terrorizing people on the streets. And there's another clips, people floating around on the social media about in Himachal, people are really being told not to be visible in this area, otherwise you'll be killed. And that is very disturbing in a democracy whereby in the international ground, on the international platform, we are projecting an image, but not translating that on the ground. That is a very serious question, need to be asked by anybody who is interested in knowing what's going on in India. By the way, I've just recently have a recent report, as recent as this morning. In fact, there's a huge stampede happened in the stadiums. 11 cricket fans dead in a stampede outside the Bengaluru stadium, assembled aimed RCB celebrations and all that. And that is, this is I don't know the ins and outs of it. I wish, as is a report, I'm just quoting the NDTV, which is 24/7. How it happened, it can happen to any place, just like in, we had a stampede and we had a celebration of, football fans in Liverpool last week. That has happened as well. So, but this is the latest has just come out. 11 people died in the stampede outside the Bengaluru stadium. Cricket and cinema is the two biggest religion in India, as they call. And what is happening in the world of cinema is not a lot because people are in doldrum. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy this particular quick break. And I will be back soon to talk about something else. So there you go.
Dublin South FM. You wouldn't buy a car without knowing its history. So why would you buy a story without knowing who's telling it? Come here and I tell you. It's not always easy to verify what you see, read, or hear. But now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland, supported by RTE. 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Welcome back to the programme. Indeed, this is Dublin South FM, 93.9, broadcasting from the Tantrum Town Centre. Your local broadcaster, SIraj, is here until 4 o'clock, and local time and India time until 8 o'clock. 8:30, because we finish at 8:30 in India time. Now, the other big issue which is looming around is, of course, the money. What is going on about the Reserve Bank of India? Who is in charge? Why India is not, considered to be, although considered to be the fourth largest economy in the world, a trillion dollar economy and everything. But then again, it's not been translating elsewhere. And that's exactly is the story of everybody. But there you go. Sit back, relax, and listen what Sharad has got to say about this particular issue.
India, the Reserve Bank of India's annual report is out. It didn't make much of a headline, but then we at Dublin South FM, Apna Radio, are committed to talk about those events and issues, consequential ones, that miss the headlines. So, with reference to RBI annual report, the Reserve Bank has transferred an unprecedented 2.6 lakh crore to the government as surplus. And this is 27% year-on-year jump. And not only it marks the highest such transfer in RBI's history, but also provides a perspective through which we examine the current state of India's macroeconomy, its public finances, and the shifting tectonics of global economics. So this massive surplus transfer is more than just a statistical anomaly. It is rooted in the structural shift in RBI's income and the income management, and both the domestic and the foreign. And this has sharply increased because of the global trends and because of its investments in the global market. The RBI to put it simply, the RBI's interest income, as we get our interest income on deposit. So RBI's interest income from foreign securities climbed due to rising global yields and particularly from the US treasuries. And domestically also, with the government borrowing more at elevated rates, so the central bank has earned high interest on its portfolio of government securities. But the major chunk of the gains of RBI comes from the revaluation of its assets. So as of March 2025, India's foreign exchange reserves are at around $651 billion. And this is up about $75 billion from last year, which was at $578 billion. Now, the reserve has increased while doing nothing, just by revaluation, because when the dollar was bought, it was, say, about 70 rupees per dollar. And now, if the same dollar is to be sold in the market, it is going to fetch rupees 80 as an example. So this revaluation and the depreciation of Indian rupee versus the dollar is where the RBI has gained. If you ask an expert, this is not a heroic gain, but more of a accounting gain. But then again, it is coming into the books of account of the Reserve Bank of India. Therefore, it is pardonable. If you see the real economy as mentioned in the report, by the way, this is not an economic survey or any report of the government like the budget. This is the report of RBI. So according to the report, the real GDP for the year 2025 have actually decelerated to 6.5%. And this is a drop from 7.2%. So basically, it's a drop of 7.7%. Nevertheless, it retains its position as a fast-growing large economy globally. And if you look at the GDP terms, it is fourth largest economy by volumes and not by per capita GDP. What I mean to say here is that comparing the GDP is a fallacy in economics. Therefore, GDP does not reflect the richness of the country. It only suggests as a flaw the quantum of money available. We Indians might take pride, but then there is a pinch of salt that comes along with it. So the real economy is a concern because it has decelerated. If you add the private and the public consumption, the rural economy has helped the private consumption and it has grown more than the real GDP at 7.6%. And this is primarily because of the abundant monsoon that replenished the reservoirs and it boosted the Kharif and Rabi output. So the good monsoon had revived the purchasing power in the agriculture sector, and which in turn has resulted in two-wheelers, tractors and FMCG goods in the rural market. But then the urban consumption had not grown, especially in the upper middle income segment, as the interest rates and the stagnant real wages had dampened discretionary spending. Why that is happening? The corporate balance sheets are looking brilliant. There is a lot of business coming in, but then the companies are not increasing the wages or giving the bonus because of the uncertainties in the global market. So there is a friction between the real world and the books of account, and the result is coming straight into the urban consumption. If you look further, the government expenditure has also slowed down, and it has slowed down drastically from 8.1% to just 3.8%, which means that government is consolidating because it has overspent previously by about half, and it is going to impact the infrastructure and the public works. So if you see the government expenditure, government is not spending in the non-election bound states. So there is a political dimension of what the government is trying to spend on, and not as a government of India, but government of election bound states. What is really worrying is the decline in the investment, the capital formation, if you say, between the 2 years, and there is a sense of domestic and foreign investor caution. So the foreign direct investment inflows have dipped by 8%, and this has been impacted by tighter global financial conditions, and we know global uncertainties in the West Asia and the Eastern Europe. But then why should domestic investment weaken? This is not clear from the report. Again, the mood in the market is depressed. And you can see that the capital goods production is just 6.1%, and this is 2 percentage point below the last year. Some may argue that it is due to high interest rate, but then in an aggressive growing economy, a percentage point up and down do not affect the capital goods production, and especially in construction and manufacturing. So while the industry slows down, the agriculture has shown the way and has helped the economy. Again, it is because of the monsoon, and the total food grain output has crossed 330 million tons. It's a new record. All to the hard work of our Indian farmers who toil on the fields in all kinds of weather, and therefore a deep and sincere salute goes to them for not only producing a record crop, but then also sustaining and uplifting the Indian economy. MSP policy still is a problem because the report says that the government's MSP policy has ensured a minimum of 50% margin over the production cost, though a small number, but then it has injected some income and confidence into rural India. But then industrial sector has failed to match the agricultural momentum, and it is down by 1/3. This is where we need to be concerned and surprised. This is largely because of the slowing of manufacturing and export orders. Going forward, because of the disturbances on our western front, the services sector like tourism, foreign tourism, that is going to be sluggish, or it would be impacted, and so will be the foreign direct investments. So this current year needs to watch out for the performance of the capital formation. According to the report, there is a slight improvement in the labor force participation, and this is primarily because of the rising female workforce participation. If you look at the numbers, urban unemployment fell below 6%, although rural unemployment has gone up because the government has reduced the funding on Manrega. As you know, Manrega is a compulsory 180 days employment for the rural economy. Why the government has done that? There are no clear reasonings for it, but considering what has been debated earlier in the parliament, sounds more political. As the unemployment in the rural sector has risen, so has the inflation declined marginally to 4.6%. Unlike the European economy, where the target inflation is 2%, the central bank with its monetary policy has a target of 4% inflation. But then if you break up the inflation numbers, the food inflation remains volatile because of the monsoon and the seasonal availability of the food. But then the good news is that overall, the inflation is seeing a guided path downwards to 4%. It may be because of the unemployment or the depressed capital formation, the FDIs, or the sluggishness in the manufacturing sector. The construction sector remained resilient, and its value add to the economy has reached the highest level since 2012. So that is like 12 years ago. But then the growth is moderate compared to previous year. In fact, there is a decline by 2%. And this could be an offset or consequence because the steel consumption was depressed, and so was the cement production in the previous years. Housing sales have also seen a negative turn in last 3 quarters. Also, the new housing projects continue to see the decline because of the unemployment and the corporates holding on to the wages growth. In effect, future, we will see rise in the housing prices, and there is going to be instability for another 2 to 3 years in the real estate market. The global economy is currently in a heightened turbulence, so the growth is projected to be slower, and according to IMF, the global growth is going to be 2.8%. Primarily because there are problems of tariff in the United States, and the Eurozone is going through a war with Ukraine and Russia. So these kind of geopolitical disruptions is not a good news. As a consequence, the global trade is expected to shrink this year by an amount of less than 1%. We are yet to see the consequences of Trump tariff, and that will also define the overall global trade, with countries moving their trade patterns and trading partners in this multi-nodal world. All through the year, the financial markets have been jittery, and the emerging economies have been concerned about the rising interest cost. There are other factors also. So in a broad brush, I can say there are climate change issues. There are job losses due to AI-driven disruptions. People are moving into crypto market, but there are uncertainties and instability there. So there is a mix of unpredictability, which is there in the previous year and it is going to be there in next few years also. Back to RBI's initiatives, the digital rupee experiment has been showing results positively, and there is a threefold increase in the digital rupee circulation. It is more of a statistical growth that we are seeing here, because the retail use of the digital rupee is bare minimum, but then this growth is seen mostly in the banks and the fintech firms. So that is driving the adoption of digital rupee. The success story comes from Odisha's Subhadra Yojana, where 88,000 women had received the targeted benefit via the e-rupee wallets. So it is making some changes and an encouraging one. Also, it is the line of future. So this space needs to be monitored and encouraged. We cannot finish the report of RBI if we do not talk about gold. There is a red flag because of the gold loan market that is creeping up in India. There are pressures of borrowings, domestic borrowings, and people are resorting to gold-backed mortgages. That means they are going to the banks and putting their gold jewelries, and in return they are getting cash. Now there is a serious problem in this practice because the banks are not clear about the value of the gold, and so there is an element of discrepancy there. And it is because there are many agents and the third party involved in the poor verification of the borrower's credentials. So the RBI has proposed a uniform loan to value cap of 75% and more strict documentation and regulation. Now the problem with the gold-backed loan is that a large number of gold loans are coming from small rural households and they want quick credit for their emergencies. India is still poor. So if the bank comes up with a strict regulation, these poor rural households who are mostly illiterate as far as the finances and the money management is concerned, they will be pushed into the arms of informal money lenders. And that is going to be a problem, pushing India back into the 18th century ways of managing gold-backed loans. This is a problem to be discussed on another day because people rushing to put their gold into bank for loan is not a good sign for India. It is not a good sign for India culturally because as a tradition, selling gold en masse has gone against the very fabric and grain of India. So something is seriously wrong, which is touching the tradition of buying gold as a sign of prosperity in India. But then for this year, the RBI has recorded surplus transfer to the government, which is a sort of a new thing and has happened only in last 10 years, where a formal method of transferring surplus to the government has started. If you remember, somewhere in 2018-19, if I am not wrong, Urjit Patel, then governor, had a tussle with the government regarding this surplus transfer. This wasn't a convention, but then because of the tussle, one, the governor left, that's my assumption, and the second, Bimal Jalan committee was set up in order to create a framework as to how RBI would be able to transfer the surplus and the earnings to the government without being politically influenced. So both good thing and the bad thing happened. But as of now, in the journey to $5 trillion economy, RBI, as always, have been the pillar of India's economical strength. Hopefully, it continues to be a reliant institution, free from the political interventions, and would help India to weather any storms of global economic crisis. If you refer to the history of 2008 financial crisis, it was the Federal Reserve of United States that was able to control the consequences of 2008 financial crisis in US and its ripple effect across the world. So RBI is the strength of India. RBI is the foundational institution of India, and we all depend heavily on the robust institutional practices of Reserve Bank of India. Therefore, every year it is important that we monitor, we discuss, and we review the annual report of RBI. RBI has been protecting India on the emergency funds, and it still stands strong with both conventional and the digital rupees, and is obviously giving us a cautious optimism, but then not a celebratory one. Hope I have been able to simplify the RBI annual report, and with those insights and some thoughts about future and past performance, I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, and dutifully ask questions. Bye for now.
Thank you so much indeed, Sharad, for putting together a lovely, analysis on RBI. And indeed, RBI, Reserve Bank of India, is the key institution which keeps the India going. And doesn't matter which power comes along, which doesn't matter what jittery actions happens, RBI is, well placed to look after the turbulent in the economy of India. And that is one thing that I would really commend the government of India to have a faith in RBI and indeed keep the country very much safe when it comes to holding the economy. I'll take a quick break and I'll come back with a little more news, and particularly the news I was talking to you earlier on. There's something recently happened in another newspaper of the Tribune, which is in Calcutta and also Chandigarh as well. But let me take this quick break and I will be back soon. Sit back and relax and don't go anywhere. There you go.
Broadcasting from the Dundrum Town Centre, this is Dublin South FM.
Are you part of a local community group or representative organisation active in the Dun Laoghaire Rathdown area? Why not join a network of over 400 such groups in the Dun Laoghaire Rathdown Public Participation Network? You can join the group, influence local policy, get regular updates about funding and other opportunities, connect with other groups like yours, publicise your group and even get free training and support. Make sure your voice is heard through DLR Public Participation Network as a registered group in the county. Dun Laoghaire Rathdown Public Participation Network. For full information, find us online at dlrppn.ie. That's dlrppn.ie.
Broadcasting to South Dublin on 93.9. This is Dublin South FM.
Indeed, this is Dublin South FM. Thank you very much for staying with us until 4 o'clock. And the time is ticking it very much. You remember the topic I was telling you about at the beginning of the program, the arrest of the Ali Mahmood Abadi operation, post-Operation Sindoor. The academia, the professor who was picked up from his residence, that has been covered in another newspaper called The Tribune in Chandigarh on Tuesday on 3rd of June. And this is about, a writer called Avijit Pathak. He's a sociologist, and he's written before as well. And he says that these days, whenever I reflect on my academic life, I feel that I have been immensely lucky. For more than 3 decades, I taught, delivered lectures, and spoke in seminars, and wrote on culture, politics, society, education. Nobody's sentiments were hurt. No FIR was filed, and above all, nobody from judiciary cautioned me about the content of the style of my writing. Of course, not anybody agreed with my worldview, and that's the democracy, and that in the freedom of should be there. There were sharp differences, arguments, and counter-arguments. Yet, at the end of the day, I could sit down with the leftist, rightist, nationalist, postmodernist, Ambedkarites, feminist in the university cafeteria, laugh, crack jokes, and share articles and books. Indeed, I cherish my freedom because I also wanted the freedom of my philosophical opponents. This is, however, is changing. We are living in a changing time. As I reflect on for the instance of the Ali Khan Mahmood Abadi. Now, Ali Khan Mahmood Abadi is the one that I talked about it earlier on, is the young professor of the Ashoka University. He's passed through for his somewhat subtle and, the Operation Sindoor, that's the statement that he made on nationalism, war, gender, politics. This sociologist says that I begin to tremble now. Yes, this young professor was arrested, and even when he was granted bail, the Supreme Court judge didn't actually forget to remind him that he ought to be cautious while commenting on such sensitive issues. Is that what we are fast becoming in normalizing the environment of toxic environment in which philosophic differences, philosophy and discussion on intellectual basis are suspected and had been put into a question. Academic freedom is discouraged. That is the bottom line. Is it that our teachers, professors, and public intellectuals will need to be taken legal advice or guardians before they come out into the classroom and open their mouth and speak or write about something? Now, that is a style of academia, but that's not anymore. There are two reasons for that. Why? They all are prevailing, and the pervading fear that surrounds our academic intellectual space ought to be worry us. And that's a very serious comment, actually, he's making. First, it indicates that arrival of not a very healthy society, a society that, despite its material wealth, trillion economy, I'll be talking about it, might begin to lose the capacity to laugh, to cherish, to humor, to accept, opposition, the pluralism, the argument, debate, engage in dialogue, conversation, and accept the inevitability of differences, because we are not equal, we are not same, we're all different. In fact, a non-healthy society is one that tends to harbor all dissenting voices. And this is the problem with that. The voices that are unsettling the status quo and indeed thereby escape from the redemptive powers of political intellectual freedom that liberates the education, that's liberating the education and the children who's been educated in an environment like that. Asking questions, liberal education is something we are very proud of that. Unhealthy society tends to be authoritarian. Yes, indeed, that's what it is. And suspect a vibrant academic intellectual culture. Suspects they are not happy about this vibrant intellectual subject. It is therefore not surprising that democratically elected authoritarian figures like Donald Trump feels terribly uncomfortable with the ethos of the vibrant academic culture and intellectual tradition that says a university like Harvard embodies. Now, this is what exactly he was aiming at. He was aiming at the grants were chopped of Harvard's. Any reasons that, a place like Harvard, how can you point the fingers on that? Now, a university like Harvard that embodies all of that freedom were not being respected by this so-called Trump in the beginning, becoming the role model who some of our politicians, bosses seek to emulate. And this is the thing that we really ape Donald Trump, that if he's doing something out there in the Howard, we have license to do it here in our university. A serious subject, actually, to be honest with you. But that's where our job is, to highlight these kind of things. But enough is enough. I am in the mood to play some songs. So there you go. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this particular song.
झिलमिल सितारों का आंगन होगा, रिमझिम बरसता सावन होगा। झिलमिल सितारों का आंगन होगा, रिमझिम बरसता सावन होगा। ऐसा सुंदर सपना अपना जीवन होगा। सावन होगा। प्रेम की गली में एक छोटा सा घर बनाएंगे, प्रेम की गली में, हो प्रेम की गली में एक छोटा सा घर बनाएंगे। कलियां ना मिले ना सही, कांटों से सजाएंगे, बगिया से सुंदर वो बन होगा। रिमझिम बरसता सावन होगा।
झिलमिल सितारों का आंगन होगा।
रिमझिम बरसता सावन होगा।
तेरी आँखों से सारा संसार मैं देखूंगी, तेरी आँखों से, तेरी आँखों से सारा संसार मैं देखूंगी।
That's it. Time is up, and I must say thank you very much for listening me. And don't forget to tune me in next week, same time, same place, 93.9 Dublin South FM, your own Apna radio, broadcasting every Thursday from 3 to 4 o'clock local time and 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. in India time. So thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the weekend. And there you go. And the last song is just completing, and so therefore I am saying goodbye, and thank you once again to be with me until the end of the program. Bye for now.
ओ मेरे दिल के चैन, ओ मेरे दिल के चैन, चैन आए मेरे दिल को दुआ कीजिए।